Back when you were growing up, it was the middle of the civil rights movement. Now there's the talk of players kneeling during the national anthem to protest what they say is police brutality against black people. What were your experiences like back in that time with police, government officials, other players?
Just before my entry into the National Football League, was a period of the great social revolution in this country. The 60s was a time in which I think this country recognized certainly that change needed to occur. Great leadership in the African American community by the late Dr. Martin Luther King, who led the great social revolution to certainly help this country come to terms with its motto. For example, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Our country was divided at that time by law in southern states, for the most part, and some states in the Southwest, with Jim Crow laws, segregation laws that are not a part of what we're supposed to be a part in this country. I have great respect, admiration for all of those young students, and I was a college student at that time. I don't know if I'd have had that kind of courage to stand up to often situations that violence occurred simply because they were only asking that they have equal rights. And so yes, it was a very profound period in this country at that time, and major changes occurred in terms of law, in terms of accessibility, in terms of rights, and so that's an area that we don't want to go back to.
Did it impact you, or as a football player attending Ohio State, were you a little bit sheltered from it?
I'm a Midwesterner, and I grew up in the state of Ohio, but visited relatives and grandparents across what is called the Mason-Dixon line in the South, and certainly experience the negatives of segregation once crossing that line. That's part of my history. When I was an athlete, none of my competitions were involved south of Mason-Dixon line. I didn't experience that directly as an athlete because all the venues that I played in were above the Mason-Dixon line, and or either as far west as the West Coast, where there were no laws of segregation.
What do you think about current race relations within the U.S. and football players deciding to take a knee during the anthem as their form of protest?
As football players, or athletes in general, or citizens in general, have the right through the First Amendment. Some side may look at it as not honoring the flag, and it's not that these young men in many cases are dishonoring the flag. What they're saying is that I believe in certain situations that things still need to be protested, but it's an examination of who we are and what we're about as a nation that they are wanting to call the attention to, and that some of these questions and these issues, like relationships with law enforcement, need to be discussed thoroughly, just as the agenda occurred years ago with civil rights.